Alright. So, here is the beginning of my first character overview of Lance. Now, I wasn't originally planning on starting with Lance, but recently I've been writing a lot of lore for him. I kind of fluctuate between different characters, and I felt really inspired recently, so I'm starting with Lance anyways, because fuck it, like, whatever. Start with whoever I want. But what you're seeing now is the first ever drawing of Lance that was very lazily colored, and the color scheme is pretty bad because it's based off of that, of course. So the boots, everything is a little messed up because I wanted every color in there to be incorporated into his design, and it didn't work very well. So far, the only color that has stayed consistent with his current design would be his bright ass hair. Not ass hair. You get it. You get what I meant there, right? Yeah. His bright hair. Neon, greenish, bluish, aqua kind of color going on. It's kind of turned more into like this color though. Like this, rather than like the green. But yeah, that's a more recent change. Now, the second picture of Lance was mostly just me trying to figure out body type, mannerisms, face design, because the first one was very cartoony, and I was still trying to figure out just the very basics of his design. But here I was trying to go for something that was less of a reference sheet and more of just like practice with, oh, how does he express himself? What does he pose like? And I don't feel like this is a super accurate representation because Lance's personality has changed a bit, and now he's more of a daredevil dude than a pretty boy like Makoto is. So I feel like although his face, hair, and the little goatee thing he has going on, that's constant, and his fashion is still pretty constant, but the pose is something that Makoto would do, not really Lance. And I just never got around to finishing it. But that's, I believe, the second drawing of Lance ever. This is either the second or third. I don't remember which I drew first. It doesn't really matter because it still features the original design. It was drawn on the 3DS in Flipnote. I've been drawing my OCs in Flipnote Studio because when I'm too lazy to get up and get paper or sit up and draw on my tablet, that's what I do. So the colors are off because you only have a choice of 5 colors, so I had limited options when coloring it in, but you kind of get the idea here. Once again, face and hair, still the same. As far as the vest goes, when I design it, I'm looking to incorporate the purple flames into it, but I just want to make it look more like it belongs to someone that likes to party, not just someone that's like a glam rocker type, if that makes sense. And this right here, see, I couldn't find the original file because it's an A-Sprite file and I didn't actually feel like opening it up, but this is what it looked like. I think it's more Lance's style. I mean, I'd probably, if I could go back, I'd probably change the arm to make him like clenching his fist or something, rather than have him being all like fashionable and cute, which is once again more of Makoto's thing. But yeah, the facial expression is very, very Lance here, so I'm starting to nail down his personality there, and you can see that the vest design changed into a jacket. I'm not keeping this. I think it looks weird and doesn't fit the design, but once again, I'm gonna keep the fluff somewhere on his jacket so it'll be flaming like it is here, because that was like a pretty important part of his design, I feel. I just need to figure out how to incorporate that. But yeah, there I'm getting closer to capturing his personality. Now, the next one was actually a commission by this person here, Sam RR. I got it at Hallmat. It was very good commission. I'm very happy with it. I think it is the most accurate representation of what Lance's face looks like. He's got like a toothy grin and he's got dimples and he's very, I don't know. You can kind of tell what I was going for with his design, and this person like really captured it. And although it has his outdated outfit, it's still him. And they didn't give him the goatee, but that's fine. I think I'll change that anyways. Sometimes I'll draw him with it, sometimes I won't. I don't know. Now this one isn't that good because I drew it a few months ago, and I don't ever do traditional art anymore. Don't have the time. It's messy. So it's very like the lines are very messy. I couldn't fix the lines, which is why the face is off and everything's pretty off. But I was trying to go for a redesign again. So I kept the flame accents on his wrist here from this drawing, but instead of making it fluffy, it's gonna be just a solid color stripe like this that ignites in flames when he performs, so that it doesn't look like a tacky before that, I guess, if that makes sense. And it's gonna be like a one-sleeved thing. He has like a cuff on his other hand. I don't remember if this was supposed to be a neck shadow or like a choker or something. I'll figure it out and see what works with his design. And I'm still trying to figure out how pants work and, well, how the crotch area works. But that's, I believe, the closest I've got to a full body ref of Lance in his natural outfit, the one he likes to wear. Now this next one is weird because it ties in with his lore pretty heavily, but it's a drawing of what he would look like when in his band with Makoto. He's got a slightly different outfit, which is closer to how Makoto's looks. It's less wild and flashy and more slick, like with the... He doesn't have his bare chest exposed, he's got regular pants, he's not wearing like platform heels or anything, but I still wanted to keep a little bit of his flair in there. The lines are very messy, it's hard to tell what's what, but yeah, this is just like an alternate outfit. Think of it as a palette swap, or like how in Smash Bros you switch through the characters and some of them change outfits and shit. That's what I like to think of it as. But anyways, that's some basic aspects of Lance's design. So now I'm going to ramble while I draw him, if I can find my fucking tablet pen in this absolute mess of disgustingness on my table that I haven't cleaned off in like who knows how long. Oh, here it is. Cool. Alright. So, funny thing about my own fucking characters, I have to use references to draw them because it's so inconsistent. Like, I'm very inconsistent with my art style. Well, not the style, but like, you know, I'm bad at drawing something more than once, even if it's a distinct character. But yeah, so I gotta kind of look at his face and remember what I had planned for it originally, because I forget that shit. And it's kind of silly, but I yeah, I'm working on that. That's one of the things I have to work on. So enough about the art itself and more about Lance. So I had originally... His original lore was really just a personality write-up, rather than something that was a concise story. Kind of like how Makoto's was. But... I don't know, I kind of designed him first. I gave him his wacky clothes and then made a story for him. That's how I do characters. I draw them first, typically. Then I kind of look at what they look like, give them outfits based off of various sources, and then kind of go from there, see, oh, this character looks like they would enjoy this, they look like they'd have this personality, they look like they'd get along with this other character of mine, and that's basically how it's done. That's my patented method of designing characters. So that's really what I did with Lance. There's a few exceptions to that, but Lance was definitely just, ooh, that's a color scheme. Let me make a character based off of that color scheme. Oh, look at what he looks like. Let's write lore for him now. That's just how I am. But anyways, the lore I originally had for him was that he was just a generic performer, and he met Makoto, and they started collaborating, and Lance is just this really chill, cool dude that likes to hang out, and he's got a really successful career, and that's it. So it was very boring and basic, and I was not happy with that. So after writing some stuff for other characters, I ended up going back to Lance and deciding, hey, he has a lot of potential as a character. He's got a flashy design. If he's interacting with Makoto in some way, who's already a very major character in my lore, then he has to be a crucial character. So from then on, I had done a brief rewrite, and the rewrite was that he was born into a family of rich performers, so he's pretty much set to be a performer. Oh, that hair doesn't look right. Basically, his life was already planned out for him. If he grew up around flashy people, he's gonna be a flashy dude, you know? He's gonna be in showbiz. And basically, the lore was that because he had been born into that environment, he was able to hone his skills and be a very skilled performer because of having all the resources, and he was destined to be famous. He got really famous, and then he met Makoto, and Lance was kind of a spoiled dude, just likes to party without any real disregard for the consequences that the excessive partying might have. Had a lot of money, of course, from being rich, so he'd blow the money like very unwisely. So with that kind of story, I felt it was still boring, but I was getting somewhere. Lance is like a reckless dude growing up in an environment that affects his behavior very strongly, which is what I like to do with my characters. I like to have their behaviors heavily influenced by how they grew up, which isn't weird at all. Like, that's kind of how you're supposed to do it. But I want it to be an incredibly crucial part of their story, and with Lance it just felt very boring. Like, there's nothing to it. Like, oh, he's born into a family of performers and musicians, and of course he's a musician now. Nah, so I wanted to do something else. So I decided, if he's gonna look like a rebel and be a crazy dude, he's gotta have some sort of backstory as to why he's like that, you know? People or characters aren't like that. They're not really born like that, with some exceptions. So, why is this dude so wild? Why is he like that? And the explanation I came up with is that he was born into a family, a rich family, but his parents are rich business people, business executives, very successful, whatever that means. They're just very successful in like a professional business environment, pretty strict, very uptight, not supportive of the idea of someone going into the arts. They'd want Lance to get into business or, medicine, something that's high paying, not like music or art, basically. I think everyone knows a family like that or has heard of that kind of behavior that a lot of families have, where they don't support their kids going into something that won't make a lot of money. But anyways, that's kind of Lance's situation. Now, he's always had a bit of a wild personality, so it's not like he's wild and rebellious exclusively because he's rejecting what his parents have in mind for him. But the fact that his parents were suppressing Lance's desire to get into music just exacerbated his rebellious nature. It made him become very, desperate to branch out. So basically he starts getting into trouble at school, starts getting terrible grades. The more he grows up and gets interested in music and the more his parents deny him the right to express himself in favor of forcing him to study and everything. And in the midst of this, he has a brother who is like the complete opposite of him, who's very into everything business related. He's very studious and very smart and responsible, and his parents are constantly comparing Lance to his brother, whose name is Lawrence, but they're constantly comparing Lance to Lawrence, saying, why can't you be like him? Why can't you get into business and get good grades and study and behave like Lawrence? And Lance is like, fuck you, Mom and Dad, you can't tell me what to do, I'm gonna be a rock star. So that's Lance. But I was like, okay, so now that I have a basic background for him, I need to determine what happens next. So Lance is in high school, has a group of friends that is similarly edgy, feels misunderstood by their parents. They're all kind of delinquents, go into nightclubs illegally, vandalize public property, play really loud music all the time, constantly disturbing people, just generally being shitheads, rebellious teenage shitheads. So one day when his parents are on a business trip, he decides, shit, time to throw a party. My parents are gone, I'm gonna fuck the place up. So he invites all these crazy delinquent high school friends of his and throws a massive party that like destroys half of the house. Like they spray graffiti everywhere, all the technology and like the TV, the speakers, everything that they had in the house is just absolutely destroyed. And there's like spilled drinks everywhere, shattered glass, flipped up tables, broken chairs, just absolute disaster. So his brother doesn't notice because his brother has a soundproof room because Lance is constantly playing loud as fuck music. But he has a soundproof room so he doesn't notice. But eventually, when he goes downstairs, the party had dissipated. He goes downstairs, finds Lance in a pool of his own vomit, just splayed out in the middle of the floor, completely knocked out cold. And Lawrence is obviously like, what the fuck? So he calls the parents and is like, come see what Lance did, you need to come back home immediately, this kid is fucking insane. So his parents like teleport home immediately because it's a futuristic city they live in. Like think of like Tron or Akira. It's like got a similar aesthetic to that. Probably should have mentioned that. But it's like like that. So they teleport back home immediately, and they're like, what the fuck? So that's the final straw. They kick Lance out on the street, and the only thing he has on him is his guitar, which is broken. It was broken during the party, and his clothes. That's it. That's all he's got. And when he wakes up and sees he's on the street, he's like, fuck. Like, what am I gonna do? His parents won't let him back in the house. Lance is 18, so he's legally an adult. He can't be like, oh, my parents abandoned me. Nah, he's an adult. He's on his own. So Lance is like, shit. So what he does is he goes to the only place he really knows, back to one of the suspicious bars that he parties at, and all his delinquent high school friends are like, fuck it, let's run away too. Some of them had already been out of school and out of their homes. Actually, it's less of that they followed him and more that they had already been kicked out, I guess. Lance is like, shit, these people are my real family. So he's homeless, he lives behind the bar, but now he's like, I gotta start over. He doesn't die because he has some street smarts from being away from home a lot and partying in seedy areas of the city. And he has a small group of friends to be with. And eventually he kind of figures out how to fix his guitar, and they start performing at the bar. And people like it. People like their music. And by there, I mean him and his bandmates, I guess. His delinquent high school friends that are his bandmates. They're like, oh, it's cool. So he starts getting invited to perform. And eventually, like, a talent-seeking agent comes over to the bar undercover and sees Lance performing and is like, holy shit, like, this guy is really good. I really like his style. So he approaches Lance after the show and is like, hey buddy, I can make you a star. And Lance is like, alright, cool, but you're talking about me, but I want all my friends to come along too. And the talent agent is like, oh shit, this dude won't take no for an answer unless I get his garbage ass friends to come with him, even though they're not as skilled as him. So he's like, fine, you can take your friends. So he signs a contract, and Lance is like, hell yeah, I'm gonna be famous, I'm gonna be a famous music star, I'm gonna be able to follow my dreams, fuck you mom and dad, you kicked me out, but it was for the best. I read at a 5th grade level, but who fucking cares, because I'm gonna be a rock star. So this dude, this business dude guy, like the next day flies him and his crew out to his studio, and they are not acquainted with the upper, Lance was part of an upper class family, but he had been living on the streets for like a year or so, and he never really knew respect. He's always had a lot of disregard for other people's fancy shit, so they pretty much keep trashing the studio, especially with Lance's friends. It makes it worse, and the talent agent is like, I need to endure this. This Lance guy is going to be famous. I need to put up with his shit, because he obviously won't listen. So he just grins and bears Lance's terrible behavior and constant partying, because he's very skilled, and yeah, so basically Lance might be a total bastard and like idiot and stupid and a dumbass, but he is very, very serious about music. Like, he becomes a completely different person when talking about it, when performing, when practicing. And he's actually very pleasant to work with when you're talking about performance and stuff like that. So, no, that arm looks kind of weird. I'll figure something out though. So for that reason, and for the fact, and also for the reason that the agent kind of believes in his talents, Lance is still welcome at the studio, keeps practicing, recording things, gets a small following, starts performing, starts making some money, and the agent is like, alright, I made the right choice. But Lance's bandmates start to get tired of all the attention, and they never really wanted to be music stars. They just want to party, whereas Lance, he's always kind of had this dream of making it big and being able to party like that, not just senselessly. He wants to be rich, I guess, off of music, not off of what his parents wanted him to be rich off of, because, you know, Lance is Lance, he likes music, that's his thing. So he kind of parts ways with his friends who leave, and his manager's like, hell yeah, finally, dude, those other people are out of the way. That'll kick some sense into Lance. He's gonna stop being as much of a shithead. Lance does not stop being as much of a shithead, and he still parties all the time and constantly trashes the studio, and they have to use a lot of the money that Lance earns from his music to keep fixing it. But his manager's a total pushover and nervous that if he stops Lance's partying, Lance is going to cut off ties and just go do his own thing and maybe get with another manager who will tolerate it more. So he just puts up with it. And eventually Lance gets hired to help work on a film score for a film that Makoto is starring in. And Lance hits it off with Makoto really well, because when he's on the set of the movie, Lance is usually talking about music and performing and recording stuff on the set of the movie, so he's very passionate about it and not about partying. He doesn't come off as like a super reckless person when talking about his passion. So Makoto's like, oh, this dude's super cool. Let's make a band. And little does Makoto know, Lance is a crazy dude. So they kind of form this weird friendship. After the filming for the movie's done, it's a huge success. So it's huge news that, oh, the guy that made the film score and the lead actor are now in a band. They already have fans before releasing any music. So now they're super famous. They just now have to tackle the challenge of getting along, because neither of them want to miss out on the opportunity to be super famous. Lance wants to be rich, famous, party all the time, and Makoto is an egotistical asshole that just wants to be loved by everyone. And it kind of forms a weird symbiotic yet harmful relationship between the two of them. There's a lot of arguing, but they're still technically friends. They usually find a compromise when it comes to music, because once again, Lance is actually reasonable when it comes to music. He becomes down to earth and very into incorporating other styles into his music, which kind of seems a bit out of character, but I felt like Lance having some kind of grounding force would be an interesting character trait, so that he's not super constantly reckless, so that like the one thing that drives him is the thing that grounds him. So basically him and Makoto are like, you know, they don't always get along. Makoto doesn't always mind parties, but he just hates the mess it makes. Lance kind of is messy and kind of gets on Makoto's nerves. Lance leaves like clothes everywhere and stuff in in their tour bus and constantly makes a mess of Makoto's possessions, and that drives Makoto off the fucking wall. But at the end of the day, Makoto usually tries to put it aside, and Lance is never bothered by Makoto's outbursts. So they're just having a good time, you know, what can I say? Then Makoto undergoes some changes because of something in his lore that happens. And I'm probably not going to give this drawing of Lance's legs. I don't know how to draw legs. But he, for reasons related to Makoto's lore, his personality takes a turn for the worse. He becomes incredibly difficult to reason with. Lance is like, shit, like I can't work with this dude anymore. It starts to bother Lance, and nothing gets on Lance's nerves. Like he's super chill, only focused on having a good time. If someone else is messing with his ability to have a good time, he just doesn't pay attention. But Makoto becomes so insufferable and so bad and so cruel and basically abusive that Lance is like, fuck it, I'm out, solo career time. And he's just back to doing his own thing, away from Makoto. And that is that. Now, clearly that story is a bit spotty in some areas, and there's some aspects of Lance's personality that I need to work out. Like explaining why exactly he becomes a completely different person when talking about music. I guess just explaining why it is that he wants to be a successful star that's rich. I guess the best way to explain it would be that he wants to one-up his parents. He wants to say, hey, like, I can be rich and famous off of music, and all these years they doubted him and said, no, you can't. You're going to be basically useless. You're not gonna be rich or successful with your music career. So Lance is like, fuck you, and that's his driving force, I'd say. His driving force is spite and desire to prove himself, as well as an underlying passion for music and performance. So it's a combination of those two things that makes Lance want to be famous, and yeah, that's kind of it. Also, he's like, he hopes his parents see him on TV. He really hopes they do. Some other funny facts that I thought of, because I like coming up with little facts about my characters, because I feel like it makes them more realistic. Well, not realistic, but it gives them more to latch onto. Giving them funny trivia adds to their personality. The smallest little details can add tons and tons of weight to a character's personality. So one thing that I thought would be funny about Lance is that he doesn't remember his brother's name at all. Like, he completely forgets his brother's existence. Like, that's how little his past life means to him. He, like, doesn't at all. And I thought of that and I was like, that's hilarious. I'm definitely making that part of the lore. So that is part of the lore. He doesn't remember his brother. And I thought that was funny. Maybe it's not funny, and I'm just stupid, but I thought it was. Man, I don't know how to draw bare chests very well. Okay. But, yeah, that just shows that Lance is mostly... I wouldn't say he's selfish. It's not that he only cares about himself, it's that he only cares about having a good time. Whether it means involving other people, wanting to cheer other people up, or just partying. His selfishness, as in disregard for other people's property, is less intentional and more obliviousness. He's not super bright. So, I guess that's another part of it. Yeah, so this dude, he reads at like a 5th grade level because basically flunking out of school, doesn't know jack shit. It's pretty funny. He's not an absolute idiot, but because he's got street smarts and stuff like that, like he knows basic stuff, but as far as academics goes, he's, yeah, 5th grade reading level, and, like, complete disregard of anything relating to book smarts, knows nothing about money and how to balance, like, a budget or anything. I mean, he's super rich, so he doesn't really have to concern himself with that. But he still doesn't understand that kind of thing. So his manager has to do it all for him and set limits on his spending and be like, no, you're not going to buy that, and, like, you need to use the money for this tour and this shit, and Lance is like, oh, fuck. He just thinks life is all fun and games because he doesn't take anything seriously. And, yeah, that's the kind of person Lance is. This explanation is pretty convoluted and stupid. And I'm sure there's some contradictions in there. But I'm doing my best. Let's see if I can fit in a hand here. That looks okay. I'll just, like, keep that there. Alright, yeah, he is a wild dude. I like that kind of character. I feel like he'd be a polarizing character, one that someone either loves if they love that kind of wild character that's stupid and just does his own thing, but is also kind of irritating because he fucks other people over with his desire to have a good time. But other people might think he's insufferable and irritating because they don't like that kind of character. Personally, I don't... It varies for me. Sometimes I like the kind of party animal character type. Other times I don't think it works. With Lance, I think I have something that's working. But I don't know. We'll see. Now, as far as the basic lore of kicked out by his parents for being a shithead, which isn't completely his parents' fault, but I'm sure if they had allowed him to chase his dream, that Lance wouldn't have ended up being kicked out. But yeah, that and Lance being discovered by the talent agent and meeting Makoto through the movie, those are things that are part of his lore that are there to stay for sure. As far as his relationship with his high school friends, certain aspects of his personality and reasons he made the choices he did, those are all kind of still a work in progress. I should probably go into more detail explaining them. Maybe I'll change some things about it. Like, I've considered making it so that Lance wants to go back with his friends when he realizes, oh, this isn't all fun and games, I have to be serious, but the contract prevents him from doing that. And Lance's friends can go back because they weren't originally in the contract like the business dude had said they were. So they leave and Lance is like, shit, I'm stuck here. Whatever, I'll make the best of it, I'll keep partying recklessly. Something like that. I'm still figuring it out. Just like I am trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with his hand here, because fuck hands. I don't know, maybe I'll give him the sleeve on this. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But yeah, that's Lance. That's what I have in mind for him. It's spotty, it's not very serious. He's not a very serious character. And I cannot for the life of me figure out how to draw anything that any part of his character, like, at all. I do not understand how to draw his pants, I don't understand how to draw his face, I don't understand how his hair works, but I'm having fun with his design, and I think I'm pretty impressed with what I came up with, exclusively based on a color palette and a doodle. So I think Lance is going to become a more interesting character once I find better ways to explain some of his choices, and maybe even make character concepts for his high school friends, like all the friends of his that left, that he performed with. I feel like the midsection is too long. Let me see if shortening it will help. I'll draw his other hand eventually. Yeah, that looks better. Okay. But yeah, stuff like that. He is very much a work in progress, but I am glad that there are certain parts of his lore that are set in stone, because I feel like I'm really getting somewhere with this character. I immensely enjoy imagining different scenarios with Lance, either just messing with my other characters, and maybe imagining Lance's general stupidity causing trouble and silly situations. And I don't want him to be that comic relief character, really, because he has his moments, and he's smart when it comes to music and when it comes to talking about it and his passion and stuff. So he's not this total no personality besides party animal type of character that exists only for slapstick humor and fucking up other people. I feel like he's a bit more than that, and I'll try and make that obvious as I flesh out more stories, one-shot stories with him, write about his relationships with other characters, things like that. I'll have to think more. Once again, explain why he does what he does. That's something that's pretty difficult to do, I feel, with characters that have seemingly contradicting parts in their personality, like how Lance is simultaneously very reckless and irresponsible and immature, but when it comes to music and working with other people on music or performance-related things, he's super pleasant. It's just hard to write something like that. But those are traits that I want to keep, because I like the kind of character that can switch from her party all the time to basically like an intellectual. I wouldn't call Lance an intellectual because he's dumb as shit, but I guess serious about something. A character that doesn't seem to care about anything suddenly showing that they care about something is a trait that I like, because I can kind of relate to that. I think the part of Lance that I really like is, or the part of me that I put into Lance is that, like, oh, people don't usually take me seriously because I'm goofy. Like, I'm loud, I'm silly, I'm like a loud, gross pervert that talks about crazy shit and stuff, but when it comes down to it, I get really, really passionate and serious about certain subjects, and it catches people off guard. Like, people have said, like, they can see a drastic change in my facial expression and mannerisms when I'm talking about certain things. And using that, I thought, I'm really proud of that, and I think Lance looks like the kind of character that would be a perfect way for me to express that part of myself. Putting that part of myself into Lance, because each of my characters has at least one trait that I associate with myself. Like how Makoto's would be my feelings of unwarranted feelings of superiority to others that I sometimes get, and how Mara would be my obsessive tendencies and stuff like that, how Chantal would represent sadistic tendencies and weird fixations on pain, Charlie would be my intense fixation on making sure everything's perfect, focusing more on mental illness rather than just regular behaviors. But yeah, it's kind of where I am with Lance. That's what I've decided to do for him. and I like it so far, even though it's very spotty and not quite planned out perfectly yet. But it has a lot of potential, I think, and this whole like relationship thing he has with Makoto, which eventually will overlap with Mera, and of course I still have to finalize the design for his manager as well as his friends. So in a sense, there's already like a whole story brewing around this. Like I have a world already developing, and it kind of happened on its own. Like I just created these characters, suddenly decided, oh, these characters have this relationship, and it's turning into, oh, and my tablet sensitivity stops working. That's good. It's turning into its own thing. And it just writes itself, I think I should say. The story just kind of took off on its own, and now there's a ton of interconnected characters, which are all pretty unique. Have some of them have similar design tropes, but I like to consider them all pretty distinct characters. A lot of them with traits that I consider relatable, which is a great outlet for expressing myself in a more subtle way. And I'm very proud with this little world I have going on, and I hope that there are some people that will like to watch me build it, talk about characters with me, maybe even give me ideas and stuff. It's, yeah. Now, let's see if sensitivity, yeah, it's not cool. Anyways, that is really it for Lance. This is the kind of thing that I'll probably revisit once I finalize the design for his outfit, make a few alternate outfit designs, and finish drawing his fucking hand. But Lance is a dude that I like very much. I'm excited to see where I take this weird elemental world, turning this hyperfixation that I always considered embarrassing and stupid and turning it into a world that I like. It has been very exciting for me, and I hope I can inspire some people to create their own elemental characters once I start writing the details of each elemental's like power and stuff like that. Yeah, that's that. This is the first of hopefully many character summaries, my spurgy rambling, and ASMR level voice that puts people to sleep. I hope that does not dissuade people from listening, even though it's not particularly interesting. Yeah, I also hope to make animatics and maybe get some voice acting done for some of these characters to help flesh out their personalities again, make playlists for them, just a whole lot of fun shit. So yep, Lansing, crazy dude, fun boy. I like his design a lot, and I am optimistic about the future. Next up is either going to be Makoto, Mera, or Cypress. I haven't decided yet. And maybe I'll finish this picture of Lance, if I can draw his fucking hand.